Buying Chinese stock isn't the problem. The problem is that you're a US senator buying $250,000 worth of Chinese stock. As a Republican, that's a Republican that now has an interest in helping China. That's like if your friend is planning on fighting someone and you give him a laxative because you bet on the other guy. This bill would stop Congress and their families from trading anything that can be considered a security commodity or a future. That does include crypto, Rip Rokana, because if you have 1,900 trades so far this year, you definitely have a shitcoin wallet. And the punishments for breaking these rules is 1 month's salary, and that's it. That's actually the only thing the bill actually says. There's no criminal punishments, only civil, and the only civil punishment that the bill cites is 1 month's salary. If that sounds like bullshit, let's look at the rest of the bill. Like I said, it bans all of these, and they're also going to be banning these, which are kind of self-explanatory. It's all looking pretty good, but there's exceptions. Because of course there is. ETFs and mutual funds are okay. They just have to be diversified and they can't have a specific strategy or focus. Like you can't invest in an oil fund because now you have a vested interest in pumping oil stock. They can also receive compensation from the primary occupation of a spouse or dependent child. In English, that means if they don't know how to live on $174,000 a year, they can receive money from their spouse or their kids, even if that money came from working a job at like Boeing or Coca-Cola, because it's not actually receiving money from those companies, it's receiving money from your family. They can put their money into the government by putting money into a pension fund or buying government issued bonds. Last thing they could put their money into is called a blind trust, and it's basically giving somebody money and then not knowing what they're going to do with it. Just imagine in the future, like you're a senator, right? And then you find out you've lost everything because Elon went back on SNL. The bill states that they must be charged a minimum of once every 30 days if they're in violation of any of these rules. So that does leave the door open to stack fines depending on how many violations or how severe a violation is. That's like the meat and potatoes. So immediately I start thinking about like houses, or what about if somebody buys bullets and then sells it in a shortage for a profit? Or what if somebody just says fuck it, trades like crazy and bites the fine? Details like that are going to be left to the ethics office. The ethics office is an independent agency that's separate from the government. The whole purpose is to fight corruption and stop the abuse of power from people in high position. It's an agency where the person in charge is nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. You know, the people the bill targets. Okay, but the reason we have a system like that, right, is basically like two-factor authenticating somebody. It's meant to prevent somebody shitty from getting into these positions of power. Meet Scott Pruitt. He denies climate change, opposes environmental protection regulation, sued the EPA 14 times, receives millions from the oil industry, and most recently, and this is my favorite part about his career, he was the head of the EPA, the same EPA that he sued 14 times. That, on top of the other stuff I just said, makes him less than an ideal candidate, but he was nominated by the president and then confirmed by the Senate. Don't get me wrong, this bill is extremely important, but this is where I get to the thesis in my title. The law is only as strong as the person you put in charge to enforce it. I just fear that this is going to be a repeat of the 2012 Stock Act, where Congress members agreed to not trade on insider information with their positions of power. But then you have blatant shit like, how does your husband buy $3 million worth of stock a month before you introduce an act that would benefit that company's stock? And really, I'm just seeing positive headlines and I'm not seeing any skepticism about what's going down. All I'm seeing is bipartisanship and unity, and that's great, but who's the person that's going to be enforcing this? You put a weak person, they're rarely going to enforce it, and when they do, they're going to do the absolute minimum, and this is just going to be another law that's going to be abused. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. What do you think? I think it's cool. It's obviously got a lot of problems. I wish it was a little more specific, and I wish that the punishments were a little harsher, but if it gets passed, it's better than nothing. And I don't know, do your own research. Don't listen to me. I'm just somebody on the internet.